Welcome to this video series of the Python course. In the previous videos, the topics that we have covered include basic syntax in Python, introduction to data types, learning the use of if, else, and elif statements, definition of loops and conditions, learning how to define and call function. In today's video, we will discuss about function arguments, return values, and scope of variables in Python, starting from what are function arguments. Function arguments are the values that are passed into a function when it is called. They provide data for the function to operate on and can be of different types such as integers, strings, lists, etc. Positional arguments and keyword arguments. Positional arguments are those that are passed to a function based on their position or order in the function call. The function receives these arguments in the order they are passed. Keyword arguments are those arguments that are preceded by their parameter name during a function call, allowing passing arguments to a function in any order by specifying the parameter name. Now we will see an example on positional and keyword argument. Here we have defined a function calculate total that returns the product of the two variables price and quantity. We first call the function with positional arguments, passing price and quantity in the order they are defined in the function. So, value 10 will be held by variable price and value 5 will be held by variable quantity. In this way, a function is called with positional arguments. We then call the function with keyword arguments, explicitly specifying the parameter name. Here, as we can see, price equal 8 and quantity equal 3 are used, specifying the parameter name. So, this is the main difference between positional arguments and keyword arguments. Coming to return value. Return values are the values that a function sends back to the caller after it has completed its task. Function uses return statement to send back a value to the caller. After a return statement is encountered, the function execution terminates and the control is passed back to the caller along with the returned value. Examples of different types of return value. Single value is here a function add is defined that returns the sum of the two variables a and b. So this is an example where a single value is returned back to the caller. Multiple values are returned in this example where a function square and cube is defined and that returns the square as well as cube of the variable x. So this is an example where multiple values are returned back to the caller. In the third example, we can see that no return statement is written. Only a string hello is printed when this function is called. So this is an example where no return statement is used. Now we will see what are variable scope in Python. Python scope refers to the region of code where a variable is accessible. Python has two main variable scopes, local and global. Local scope, variables defined inside a function have a local scope. They are accessible only within the function in which they are defined. Global scope, variables defined outside of any function are declared as global within a function have a global scope. They can be accessed from anywhere in the code. If you need to create a global scope but are stuck in local scope, you can use the global keyword. The global keyword makes the variable global. Coming to an example on global and local scope in Python. So in this example, inside the function myFunction, a local variable value is defined with value 20, which shadows the global variable. This is the global variable that holds value 10, and this is the local variable with the same name that holds value 20. The print statement inside the function prints the local variable. So we can see that the output in this case will be local 20, whereas the outside the function print statement accesses the global variable. So the output will be global 10. Therefore, the local variable value inside the function is separate from the global variable name value. Modifications to the local variable do not affect the global variable. So now we will go to the Google Colab platform where we will see some practical application of what we have learned today. So now we are at Google Colab and let's start with an example on function argument. So as we can see, here is a function called with positional arguments, and we have the value 10 will be held by price and value 5 will be held by variable quantity. Whereas in the second case, we have calling a function with keyword arguments in which we have explicitly use name of the parameter where price equal 8 and quantity equal 3 is written. So now if we will run this snippet, we can see that 50 and 24, both the function calls have taken place and the statement is printed respectively. Now we'll see an example on return values. So first is an example where a single value is returned. This is an add function that takes two variables a and b and returns a single return value, which will be the sum of a and b. When we will run this code, we can see that 8 is returned. That is the sum of 3 and 5, which were given as parameters. The second is an example of where multiple values are returned. So the first value that is returned will be the square of variable x, and the second value that is returned will be the cube of variable x. Both the returns value will be separately stored in variables square and cube as written in this line. So when we will execute this code, we can see that square 16 and cube 64 for value 4. Both of these are printed. Third case is where no return statement is present. When we will execute this code, we can see that result none is printed because this result variable will hold null as return type, as there is no return type present for this function greet. Finally, we will see what are an example on variable scope. So this variable value is a global variable as it is not defined inside any function and is defined in global scope. Whereas this variable value is a local variable with same name as it is defined inside the function my function. So when we will execute this code, we can see that the local and the global values both are printed separately, and the local and global variables of same name do not interfere with each other. So this marks the end of this video, and that was all about function arguments, return values, and variable scope in Python. Right.